Thank you. Thank you all for your testimony. You bring up a lot of subjects. Cody, I enjoyed coming up and visiting Fort Belknap last year and talking about the water rights and stuff. But I agree with what you said. But I'll tell you what, it's a real challenge that we're looking at how we're going to fund these water agreements, because there are water rights agreements. There are a lot of them across the country. And we're talking about billions and billions of dollars when you add them all up. We got to find a way to do it. And I don't want it to come out of the discretionary funds that we're funding other things. Otherwise, it's just going to reduce funding for other things. We've got to. I would like to see it, frankly, come out of the Justice Fund, where other judgments come out of in the Department of Justice. Getting it there is a challenge, but we're certainly looking at ways to do it, because it's amazing how many of these water settlements there are, and they're going to cost us a ton of money to do, but it's the right thing to do. We just got to find a way to do it. So I appreciate your testimony on all of the issues that we're going to deal with. I'm going to let Mr. Zinke ask most of the questions, because he knows more about all of you than any of us do. So, but Ms. Pingree?
Yep. Thank you for your testimony, and I concur with the chair. We really have to figure out a way to fund these water settlements. It was interesting for you to say that yours is one of the oldest, and that's a long time to be waiting for the federal government to meet its treaty and trust obligations. So we absolutely need to do this, and I know how critically important it is, particularly as we're experiencing more drought and other challenges. Communities really just need this water. And so many of you brought up law enforcement. That's another area where we're just woefully behind. I think we meet, less than 20% of the actual need, so you know that. You need more money for law enforcement in the courts, and I hope we can move those numbers up a little bit this time. And you mentioned some things around the IHS payment of PRC services. It's hard for me to fathom that they have bills going back to 2018. And as you said, making it very clear that that's not the responsibility of the patient, the client, and to have that go onto people's credit ratings is it's really outrageous. So I hope we can look into that a little bit more. In this round, I'm just deeply worried about these payments not being made, especially if the money is there, for it to not get through. And we've heard before this morning about the VA connection, and we know that the VA has more money than IHS, so we want to make sure that those payments get made, and IHS has that money available to them. So thank you to all of you. I too will defer to Mr. Zinke. I know he's got his finger on the pulse of Montana.
That's right. Before I ask Mr. Zinke, I did want to mention one thing that was brought up, and that's the wildfire fighting. And we're going to have wildfires this year, I think, because of the drought conditions that exist in the West. And I know that in the Department of Interior, they've taken the BIA wildfire fighters, the BLM wildfire fighters, the Parks, National Parks wildfire fighters, and Fish and Wildlife wildfighters, and combined them into one agency and stuff. And it might be the right thing to do. I don't know. We're still asking a lot of questions about it and how it's going to work, and some good questions. Like I say, I'm kind of agnostic of whether it's the right thing to do or not, because I just don't know. I've got a lot of questions that I've got to get answered, and there is a proposal to take the Forest Service wildfire fighting and put it over in the Department of Interior. A lot of questions remain, but we'll be dealing with that. But I'm glad you brought that up, because it is going to be a real challenge this year, no matter how it's done. So, exactly. Mr. Zinke.
Well, a lot in here, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. One is the Tuahi. I think we all agree that's been a great program. It gives you the flexibility, and there's differences between even the tribes in Montana culturally, and I think it gives you the latitude and flexibility to what makes sense, and I think those dollars are well spent. So I don't want to talk for the other committee members, but that's been a very successful program. And actually, I'd like to see some increased funding on it. On water compacts, from a former secretary view, it should not be appropriated dollars. It's not an appropriations, a treaty obligation. It's no different than a treaty with Guam or one of our territories. It happens to be a territory within the continental United States, and it's a treaty obligation. Whether it's from 1863 or the Hellgate Treaty, you can pick one. and the Fort Belknap is the last of the compacts, but there's a Blackfoot fix to it. Because the Blackfeet, and you look at the water compact that the Blackfeet signed, there's an addendum on it that the Belknap issue had to be resolved with water, and I think we've looked at it. I think we've got the document where it's sound. On the actuary, the reason why it doesn't have a CBO score because it's outside the 10-year window, so you don't have a CBO score. Secondly, any actuary will tell you a settlement reduces long-term liability. That's why it's a settlement, because it's a settlement between the sovereign nation, the state, and the federal government through the BIA. But those should not be appropriated dollars. The account it should come from, which is historical, it's been used before. There's two accounts it's been used. One is the Department of Justice Settlement Fund. That fund is for settlements. And the second is Customs, which has been used. But both accounts should not come through appropriated dollars. These are my thoughts. The northern Montanan, which is the Belknap, it really is the upper Missouri because it affects everything downstream. But also there are other tribes that also, the Navajo being one of them. We just need to get it done. And I don't think you care how it gets done. You just want to get it done. Mm-hmm. And my thoughts are, I've talked to the White House. I think I got the president in a good spot to have one big, beautiful American Indian compact bill. We'll name it. It'll be wonderful. It'll be big. It'll be beautiful. But it needs to be done. And we're trying to get them where they're behind. And I think we're almost there. But there's about probably $12.5 billion or so of tribal water compacts that are mature, that are already through the process. Yours is the oldest. Yours is the most senior. But you have the Navajo. You have a tribe in New Mexico. There's a bunch of them. You added them up, and as the chairman says, they're a lot of money, but they're not in comparison. We blew $200 billion plus in Ukraine. I can go through all things, and really this has to be settled on home turf, and it's a treaty obligation. So this is a bipartisan issue. It's not a partisan issue, so I think there's going to be progress. The Senate has already passed, some of them in this area. The Senate is actually ahead of us. That doesn't happen very often. But I'm fairly optimistic that we'll get the last of the compacts done in Montana this term. And quite frankly, I think it probably will go on suspension because there's on both sides there's a compelling argument and a desire. Again, it's not appropriated dollars. So on law enforcement, it's interesting. Prosecutors is $16 an hour. That's less than McDonald's, and I don't know what the state rate is. I would imagine the state rate for prosecutors in Montana is somewhere around $80 an hour. But we'll look at that how to have parity because you can't have $16 an hour and absolutely agree. For the CSKT, thank you for the water level. That's a big issue. But the water in Montana, whiskey's for drinking, water's for fighting. All tribes have water issues on there, and I think we're at least looking at those. Other issues, a lot of ground on IHS. I'm under the belief now we're going to have to reorganize it. People have been complaining a long time. We had the IHS here. We've had multiple hearings, but it doesn't seem like it resonates. So and we've talked to the new director, the old director, the directors in past, but the complaints are about the same. So I think we're going to have to look at how to reorganize it, and probably more sovereignty on the front end. And the payment process, when you have 2018, I can't think of another system that has payments out there for something that's been approved. Well, it's not like they're not approved. They were approved by a competent authority, and then there's no payment ever. And I agree strongly with the link between the VA. You know, the Fort Peck's a long ways away from Helena, so you're not going to be able to go in, you know, unless it's a routine, you know, physical or something like that. Anything acute, you're not going to be able to go to. I don't know what the closest facility is in Fort Peck. It might be Billings. I don't know, but it's a long ways away. So that link between the two should be an easy for payment because you're a veteran. You know you're a veteran. Thank you for your service. The Montana tribes and tribes across the country serve at higher rates than I think anyone else as a people, and certainly that should be returned in a veteran's veteran. So you should be the same service and same payment with that. But I think I can speak for the committee is that we strongly support sovereignty of the nations, but sovereignty should mean something. And what my experience is, sovereignty means you have more bureaucratic nonsense than a county next to you. And the roads, I mean, I'm just interested on the roads. What part of the tribal from Browning to Babb is tribal?
Those are state, but in between, like we're talking towards Heartview.
Okay.
Probably going, so there's 89, then we have one from...
so all the way in from Browning to Heart Butte is tribal?
The west side, Route 1.
Okay.
I believe it's Duffy Comes Night Memorial Highway.
I've actually driven it. I agree with you. It's not a great road.
Well, the one from Heart Butte to Birch Creek is like the bombs hit that road. You know, if you swerve on one side, miss a pothole, you're definitely going to hit one on the other side. So you got to drive very slow, and there's a safety issue. I did have our roads department go out and patch some of it. But with severe weather, the elements in our community, that doesn't fix. It only fixes the problem for a little while, and then it's back to where it was, or even worse.
And inside baseball, I understand the Ouray County on snow plowing and stuff. So also, I think we're meeting today.
We are.
So we'll talk about the youth center or whatever.
For sure.
That $20 million has been sitting out there for 3 years. We just got to figure out how to execute it. So I appreciate all of you, man, and I honor my name, Mwanga Intacha, and the Bell family for a lot of reasons. But it's my pleasure representing you, as best I can. So thank you.
Well, on a personal note, let me just say that on behalf of the committee, that this will be the last tribal days that Mr. Zinke will be serving in Indian country as a whole, but specifically the state of Montana. And y'all will be losing a powerful advocate whose shoes will not be able to be filled easily. So thank you for being an strong advocate for Indian country, Commander Zinke.
I appreciate it.
So
I'm not dying. Like all battleships, you got to return to port for repair and reload. So it's my time to go back into dry dock for a little while.
For sure.
Thank you, gentlemen. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have from South Dakota, Ryman LeBeau, the chairman of the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe. Peter Lingeek, chairman of the Crow Creek Sioux Tribe. Frank Starr comes out, president of Oglala Sioux Tribe. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. Appreciate everybody being here in the audience. Understand we're running a little bit behind timeline. We'll try to get the trains moving on time again. So try to keep your comments to 5 minutes. That way we can ask some questions. We're going to begin with Chairman LeBeau. Please go ahead, sir.